Namaste. Well, as musicians say, I am deep in the shed. That means I'm out back in the woodshed practicing my little whatever off and don't have time for making videos and sharing stuff because I'm in the middle of a whole new bag. So, the other day, I had some spare time. I was on my way to the optometrist or something like that. And I happened to read the 4th chapter of the Māṇḍūkya Upaniṣad Kārakā by Gauḍapāda, who is the guru of Śaṅkarācārya, Ādi-Śaṅkara. And the first thing I realized is that previously I had only skimmed it and not really got the meaning. For example, I couldn't recall what it was about. That's always a sign of misunderstood words. So I went back into it. And what I discovered was that this is the golden key. This is the key to everything. Seriously, this is huge. And it's overlooked because it's in the end of the book. And, by that time, you think you understand everything because the first 3 chapters are so wild. They're so full of wonderful values. So you're just not really paying attention to chapter 4 and how amazingly out of sight it is. When I actually tried to go through it and understand the reasoning Gauḍapāda uses and Śaṅkarācārya amplifies in his commentary, I realized, my God, this is the solution to everything. Why you can't apply the knowledge of Brahman to generate bliss, for example. Why people get hung up in my own life, for example, on teaching and not practicing fully the truths that they're talking about. And it even has the solution to the arguments of the scientists, these empiricists. And I mean, it's deep, so deep that they can't possibly reply. So when I realized all this, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, oh man, I got some studying to do. Because I'm never one to refuse an intellectual challenge. Beginning from back in grade school days, when I learned to read well enough to actually read the New York Times by the time I was, 6 or 7 years old. But since then, I have used those skills to understand the Upanishads and Vedanta. But I was still not quite satisfied with my knowledge. That's why I was checking back to chapter 4 of Māṇḍūkya. I wanted to see if I had really got it. And I hit a wall. I hit a vertical sheer wall of incredibly profound logic that everybody misses. And if they understood it, they would realize Brahman like that. I came up the hard way, sitting in yoga position, meditating for hours and hours. But this insight obviates even that. Except, it does develop character. I'm a real character, you can tell, right? Sitting and worship and even external religious activities like charity and so forth, tapas, are valuable because they purify the senses and mind. This is a necessary prerequisite to grokking these arguments that are so subtle and so profound. I know I'm overusing that word, but there ain't no other word for this. It's like as deep as the ocean, as deep as the Marianas Trench. So I'm just here looking at this, and every single shloka was a slog. I mean, to really get it, I had to look at 3 sources. Besides the Karaka itself, the Sanskrit, going back to the original Sanskrit, then there was Śaṅkarācārya's Bhashya. And I looked at 2 different translations by Swami Nikhilananda and by Swami Gambhirananda. Both of the same school, both from Ananda Ashram, or is it Advaita Ashram, the publishing arm of the Ramakrishna Mission up in the Himalayas. But I mean, they're really on their own trip. You know, they don't hold back from anything. They plunge right in and deal with it very competently. So I was looking at both of these translations, and there's also a translation of Anandagiri's Tika. A Tika is sort of like a glossary or a dictionary that explains how the specific Sanskrit terms are used in that particular shloka. Because, you know, Sanskrit words can have dozens of different meanings. So combining all these together is what gave me the insight. I couldn't get it from any one of them alone. So I realized what I'm going to have to do is go through every shloka, beginning from the first arguments, the Sanskrit itself, and Ādi-Śaṅkara's commentary on it, the Bhashya, which goes into the meaning of the words, and then the glossary, which goes further into the meanings, supported by the Sanskrit dictionary, of course, and even the English dictionary, because some of his terms are out there, you know, like viz, V-I-Z. What does it mean, you know? Well, the way he uses it, it means, in other words, or to explain in a different way, or namely, you know, and so on like that. I mean, just a million little details that had to be resolved to make this accessible to a contemporary person, you know, like me. This is what I call doing my homework. I think by writing. And I write by taking the scripture as a basis, and then all the available commentaries, and synthesizing them into a single flowing narrative that explains the verse, more or less in grammatical order. But when it has to be in logical order, then we switch to that, you know. But anyway, getting into too much details, off in the weeds here. The real point is that I'm going to make a series based on this work. I don't know when. I'm going to start it when I feel like I've mastered the material well enough to explain it and answer any questions on it, you know, accurately, so that you can get the result. That's the whole point. I have to realize it. Then I'll feel like I got it, and I can share it with others. So, yeah, I might be in the dark here for a few more days. It's all right. Nothing is wrong. Just taking care of business, doing my homework to be able to share this most important, most powerful, most profound topic with you all. Om Tat Sat. Aum Shakti Aum. Aum Namah Shivaya.